everybody, welcome back to my channel and another true crime video. So a couple channel announcements before we get right into the video. First of all, we hit 10K this week and I'm beyond grateful. Thank you guys once again so much for always being here, for your really kind comments, for your kind words, for being a part of this. I appreciate every single one of you. A lot of you have asked me to do a Q&A. So to celebrate hitting 10K, I've put up a post on my Instagram account, which basically is just asking what kind of questions you guys have. What do you want to know? So if you're interested in taking part in that Q&A, head over to my Instagram. It's at Stephanie Harlowe, and find the 10K video that I posted yesterday, I believe, and just comment under that video about which questions you want answered. Another announcement I wanted to make is about a series I'm going to be started. It's going to be called Bedtime Stories, and basically it's just going to be me in my bed, in my pajamas, telling stories. So they're going to be less true crime and more kind of like mystery, conspiracy theory, kind of like the spiritualism video, kind of like the Roanoke Colony video, but that's what those kinds of videos are going to be like. I just think it's a fun concept. I think it can grow into something really interesting, and I have a lot of good ideas for videos. So look out for that. I'll probably be starting that within the next week or two, and then you should see that at least 2 to 3 times a month. Additionally, I just wanted to address something really quick. It appears that the more subscribers you have, the more people find your channel who don't really have anything nice to say, and that's fine. Thankfully, I am a self-confident, self-assured woman. I know who I am. I don't ever question who I am. And the way I do these videos, the people who like the way I tell these stories, the people who enjoy my voice, the people who like the amount of detail I put in, and the people who like that I give my opinion will continue to come back to see these videos. And that's really the people that I care about. So it's okay if you want to make comments that are constructive. I love constructive criticism. I'm a forever student. I'm always trying to learn and grow. But a lot of these comments are just rude and mean. And once again, it doesn't bother me because it's interaction on my channel. It still looks to the algorithm as if people are interacting with my channel. So if you really don't like me and you really don't want to see me succeed, then I would just say don't say or do anything on the video. Just click out. I don't care though. You can absolutely continue writing your crazy comments that I know for a fact you wouldn't say to my face, because that's what being behind a keyboard does to people. It makes them bold. It makes them feel like they can just say whatever and that they're not talking to a real person. But I am a real person. So if you make a comment like you don't like my accent or the way my voice sounds, that's literally something I can't change. I can't help it. I was born this way. It's just pointless and counterproductive to say you don't like somebody's accent so you can't listen to them. And I mean, I get it. Whatever. I've literally never heard somebody's accent as long as I could understand them and said, oh, I hate their accent, I can't listen to them. But I'm an open-minded, reasonable person, so that's probably why. If you guys are interested actually in seeing a video of these hate comments that I get, because some of them are really crazy and really out there, let me know and I'd be happy to do that. See, I have a feeling these people don't think I'll see these comments maybe, so they feel brave, but I read every comment. I look at every comment and I try to respond to every comment. So if you write something nasty, I'll see it. And I don't care. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't hurt me. So really the only thing that you're doing is looking foolish and mean and petty. Now that that's out of the way, let's get started on the video. Oh my God, I use my iPad to look at my notes, and it literally just asked me, do you want to do a software update? And I almost hit install now, and then I wouldn't have been able to stop it. And I wouldn't have been able to use this. Dodged a bullet. So today's true crime video, it's not a mystery because we know what happened at the end of it. We know exactly what happened. But I picked this case because I just thought it was kind of crazy. I thought it was crazy. When I read it, I was like, what? That's crazy. Crystal Howell lived in Augusta, Georgia with her parents Christina and Michael and her older sister Sierra. I guess Crystal was a handful as a child. The way she's described, it reminds me of my youngest Bella. Her mother said if there was trouble to be found, that Crystal would find it. And that's completely how Bella is. I mean, I think Bella literally walks into a room and says to herself, how can I absolutely destroy this place. What can I do in here to cause the most damage? That's how Bella is. Like, she's spirited, she's crazy, she's into everything, and she's a handful. And that's pretty much how her mother described Crystal. But Christina Howell also described Crystal as being a lot of fun. There was never a dull moment. She was always kind of like on to the next thing and interested in everything and, you know, always up to something. So when you have a child like that, it can be exhausting, but it's also fun because you kind of are on this ride with them. As Crystal began growing up, though, this normal childhood mischief turned into something a little bit more malicious. According to her family, she started lying to them, she was big into shoplifting, and she even turned to vandalism. I guess at one point, she even lit her neighbor's pool cushion on fire. So this obviously became a lot for her parents and her family in general. They were kind of always stressed out that she was going to do something else, always waiting for the other shoe to drop. So they decided that she should probably go on some medication. She was on medication for a while, but her father, Michael, a local sports editor, he didn't really like it. He said it changed her personality. He didn't want her to be on medication. He hoped and thought that there would be another way to help his daughter. He described his wife, Christina, trying so hard to keep Crystal on her meds as putting a proverbial pillow over her face. He thought she just wanted to medicate her and forget about her, and she didn't want to actually deal with the root of the problem. He didn't even want Crystal to go to counseling because I guess he had gone to counseling when he was younger and he had been bullied for it and made fun of. So he didn't want her to have to go through that and face that kind of stigma. It was pretty clear that Michael thought if he gave his daughter enough love and understanding and a good home environment that she would be cured or fixed. So after 19 years of marriage, he and his wife Christina, they decided that they would be calling it quits. They couldn't decide what to do with Crystal's mental health, and his wife had also dropped a bomb on him, telling him that their oldest daughter, Sierra, wasn't actually his biological daughter. Sierra recalls growing up with Michael. Him knowing that he wasn't her actual biological father caused him to treat her really differently. He was cold to her. He wasn't, a fatherly kind of figure because he knew she wasn't his, and she could always sense that. She said it was like he didn't even want her around. Michael Howell had a pretty good job, and he also had a sizable inheritance that he'd gotten from his grandparents. So when he and Christina split up, he took Crystal, who was now 17, and they moved to North Carolina to the really isolated area of Sheepback Mountain. He purchased a really large 8-bedroom cabin, and it was really remote. It was in the middle of nowhere. It was literally in the side of a mountain. There wasn't anything around. And I think he thought the more remote, the better. The less opportunity Crystal would have to get into trouble. If there was nothing to do, she couldn't really do that much wrong. The area of Sheepback Mountain is gorgeous. And like I said, it's remote, but it's beautiful. I mean, it's mountains and greenery as far as the eye can see. It's a really gorgeous place. And I think that Michael hoped bringing his daughter to such an out-of-the-way, beautiful place would give her some peace. Maybe she would find her old self again. He really wanted to help his daughter. He didn't want to use medication. He didn't want to use counseling, but he wanted to make her better. What I do think happened, though, is instead of bringing her to a place where there wasn't much for her to get into trouble with, he brought her to a place where there really wasn't much to do, and I think she got bored, and it kind of almost made her demons worse. Because of her boredom, she started doing drugs. She continued shoplifting. She would run away and be gone for weeks at a time, and he didn't know where she was or if she was okay. One of Michael Howell's friends says that the more Crystal acted out, the stricter Michael got at home. He still believed that if he was there for her and supportive and cared for her and gave her a strict home environment, she would snap out of it. It seemed to me, from hearing people who knew them talk about them, Crystal and her father Michael had a really good relationship. They were really close. Crystal's friends at her North Carolina school said it was the kind of relationship they wished they would have with their father. He adored her and she adored him back. One cold Monday in February, Crystal and her father were shopping at Ingles, a local grocery store, and he caught her shoplifting again. So he was at his wit's end at this point. He made her give it back, he made her apologize, and they went home. I would really like to know what took place in that car ride between Ingles and their home, what he said to her, what kind of policies he was planning on enacting once they did get home to keep her in line. We'll probably never know because As soon as they got home, Crystal went to take a shower and her father lay down to take a nap. While she was in the shower, she was kind of seething over what had just happened. Maybe she was embarrassed at being caught shoplifting in such a small town. Maybe she really was pissed that she had to apologize. And she's just in the shower, kind of like rolling this all over in her head and getting more and more upset. And she made the decision that she was going to kill her father. So after she gets out of the shower, she finds her father's shotgun. She walks up to him where he's sleeping, puts the shotgun to his head, and pulls the trigger once, ending the 50-year-old's life in an instant. The day after she murders her father in cold blood, Crystal tells her friends that he's out of town for work and she needs a place to crash while he's gone. She asks her friend Taylor, can she stay at her house? And Taylor says, yeah, of course you can crash here while he's gone until he gets back from his business trip. A couple days later, Crystal again tells her friends that she's just received an earth-shattering telephone call from her mother, letting her know that her father's dead because he's committed suicide. She began crying hysterically and saying, my dad killed himself, my dad killed himself. So at this point, Crystal's obviously putting on an act. She's trying to cover her tracks. She knows she has to give an explanation for her father's whereabouts, why he's not home, but she also knows that she can't use this business trip excuse forever. So she comes up with this story that he's committed suicide. That night, Crystal's friends, Taylor, whose house she was staying at, and Summer, who was another classmate, they stayed up with her, helped her get through her grief. Summer describes Crystal as somebody who was charismatic and funny, but also had a weird way of expressing her emotions. Summer said she usually would keep her emotions in. She was more concerned with how other people felt and making other people happy rather than expressing her own inside emotions. So the two girls weren't terribly surprised the next morning when Crystal woke up and seemed to kind of be over the death of her father. She also came up with the brilliant plan that the three girls should move into her father's now empty cabin in the mountains and stay there together, live there together. Now, I'm not sure where the parents of Summer and Taylor were at when this was all going down. Did they know that Crystal's father had allegedly committed suicide? Did they know that these three teenage girls were going to be staying in this isolated mountain cabin by themselves? I can't imagine they did. I feel maybe they didn't know Michael Howell was dead, or why would they have allowed that to happen? That's kind of something that bugs me about the whole situation, and no matter what I look for, I can't find anything saying if the parents of Summer and Taylor knew that Michael wasn't going to be at the home and that these three teenage girls were going to be in the middle of nowhere by themselves. Either way, Michael Howell's safe haven that he had created for his daughter, hoping that it would help her find peace from her demons, it became a teenager's dream party house. It was a nonstop party here. From the moment those three girls moved in there, they did nothing but invite people over, drink, do drugs, and party. Crystal even had a stripper pole installed in the kitchen, which I feel like is the weirdest place to put a stripper pole. Why the kitchen? You have 8 bedrooms here. Why do you have one in the kitchen? You're trying to make scrambled eggs and somebody's, sliding down the pole 5 feet away from you. It just seems like the most awkward and unsanitary place to have a stripper pole, but what do I know? I don't own a stripper pole. She bought food for her friends. She kept everybody supplied with alcohol and drugs, and she did this all on her father's dime. She was taking money out of his bank account to afford this party lifestyle that these three girls had created for themselves. This situation went on for about a week, and then Crystal's friends say she started to act differently. And I'm gonna go ahead out on a limb here and say it had something to do with the massive amounts of crystal meth that she was ingesting. And believe me, the irony of her name being Crystal and her drug of choice being crystal meth was not lost on me. Summer and Taylor said she started acting crazy. She'd be completely out of it, staring vacantly into the distance, and then the next moment just be wild and all over the place. People would be smoking cigarettes and smoke would drift by her, and she would look at it and say, "That's my dad." After partying for a week straight, her friends report that Crystal sat in a chair and didn't move for 2 entire weeks. They had to take care of her and make sure she was eating and just kind of keep an eye on her. But then one day, she just snapped out of it. She was fine again. Crystal woke up from her weird coma state and told her friends and everybody that she was going back home to her mother's house and she would be there for about 6 months. She told everybody they could stay if they wanted. Why not? I mean, it's a vacant house. Nobody's coming back to it. You guys can stay here if you want. She would keep paying the electric bill, and if they needed food or help with anything, to let her know, and she would send them money. There was just one rule that she wanted followed while she was gone. Don't go near the shed. Crystal told her friends that this was her and her father's special place, that they would go there to hang out together, and she didn't want this treasured memory ruined by the presence of anybody else. So she just didn't want them going anywhere near the shed, and other than that, they could do whatever they wanted in that house. Crystal rented a U-Haul, put all her belongings in it, withdrew about $3,000 from her father's bank account. She got into Michael Howell's orange Land Rover and drove away. Apparently, Crystal's friends didn't really put too much stock in her request for them not to go near the shed, because the very next day, they did. Apparently, Crystal owned a pinball machine, or her dad owned the pinball machine, and she told them that they could sell it. So they'd taken it from downstairs and brought it to show somebody who wanted to buy it, but that person didn't end up buying it. So they brought it back to the cabin, and instead of having to lug it all the way downstairs, Summer was like, why don't we just put it in the shed? Crystal's not going to be back for several months. By the time she does come back, we'll have it sold. She'll never know it was ever there. They popped the lock off the shed, and Summer says the first thing that hit her was the smell. They immediately could smell Michael's decomposing body. When you see Summer in interviews, she's literally still traumatized over this. Like, it still is affecting her. I can imagine it was a really horrific thing to come upon. She says at first when she opened it and she smelled that horrible smell, which I'm sure everybody innately kind of knows that is the smell of death. Even if you've never smelled it before, you kind of will just know when you do smell it, that is the smell of death. She smells this horrible smell and she sees this blue storage bin inside the shed. What she saw when she looked into the storage container is something she will never forget. It was the body of a man curled up, knees to chest, with a single bullet hole in his head. At first, Summer claims she thought it was one of the partygoers who had been at the cabin that first crazy party week, which kind of struck me as odd. Like, why would you think that one of the men or boys or people who had been at one of your parties was shot and then put in the shed? Why is that the first thing that comes into her head? It kind of makes me question the kind of things that went down during that first week, what kind of shenanigans were going on if she assumed immediately a dead body in a shed was one of the partygoers. But that's neither here nor there. After closer investigation, they did discover it was the body of Michael Howell. Taylor and Summer were freaked out. They got out of there immediately and they went to the Haywood County Sheriff's Department to report Michael Howell's body being in that shed. Summer immediately said she knew Crystal had done something to her father. She even said she thought that Crystal was trying to frame her for his death. Crystal had disappeared. She wasn't around. Summer was the one who found the body. Summer was staying on the property, and Crystal had sold the murder weapon to Summer's father a couple weeks prior for $20, saying that her father had given it to her for protection and she just didn't want it anymore, didn't want it around, so she was just selling it for $20. So Summer's father was in possession of the murder weapon. Summer was staying on the property. Summer discovered the body and she freaked out and thought Crystal was trying to frame her. By the time her father's body was discovered, Crystal was already back in her hometown in Georgia. She had called her mother and told her she was coming to stay with her for a while. And Christina was obviously a little reticent about this. And she said, well, just show me the emancipation paperwork. Show me the paperwork showing your dad's okay with this and you can absolutely come home. Crystal never sent any paperwork over. She just showed up one day. Crystal's mother, Christina, and her sister, Sierra, actually saw Crystal sitting in her father's orange Land Rover, and that's how they knew that she was in town, and they kind of pulled over, and they were like, hey, what are you doing here? And Christina describes her youngest daughter as being really standoffish. She said she didn't want to be touched. She didn't want to give her a hug hello, even though they hadn't seen each other in a while. She was just really weird. And Sierra says her younger sister was awkward. There wasn't any conversation. She said it looked like she had no soul, like there was nobody inside of her. Her eyes were just dead. So obviously there's no conversation really happening. It's awkward. Nobody knows what to say to each other. Nobody expected to really see each other. Crystal tells them that she has a place to stay, and Sierra and Christina were on their way somewhere anyway, so they said their awkward goodbyes and probably assumed they'd see each other later, and went their separate ways. A few hours after this, the local Georgia authorities found Crystal sleeping at a local motel, and they arrested her. At first, she acted like she didn't know what they were talking about. She didn't even know what was going on, completely innocent. The police officer who arrested her said he could tell 100% that she was putting on an act. She was super nonchalant and casual while being questioned, but the police weren't buying it, so they charged her with first-degree murder. When Christina Howell learned what her daughter had been accused of doing, she drove right to the police station and she gave her daughter a hug, and Crystal said, "I didn't mean to do it." And that's pretty much all she said to her. After further investigation, details of the cold-blooded murder started to fall into place. How she had killed Michael with his own shotgun. How she had then dragged his body into the storage shed and shoved it into a blue container, covering it with a sleeping bag. How she had then invited her friends to come over and live with this house, where she proceeded to drink, do drugs, and pretty much go on with her life while her father's dead body sat just yards away. It also came to light that she had withdrawn over $12,000 from her father's bank account, as well as used her cell phone to Google, how long does it take a body to decompose? While Crystal was awaiting trial, she was diagnosed with several mental disorders, including multiple personality disorder. No matter how hard I looked, I really couldn't find the rest of Crystal's diagnosis. If I had to guess what the rest of the diagnosis was, and this would just be guesswork and speculation, I know a lot of you like to tell me I don't know what I'm talking about. I did major in psychology in college, so I know a little bit, but I'm obviously not a doctor or a licensed professional, so don't come for me. It's just my opinion. I think it sounded a little bit like oppositional defiant disorder, maybe mixed with a little bit of bipolar. I know I'm not a psychiatrist. Knowing what I do know, that's what I would call it, but I'm not a doctor. There's my disclaimer. I hope it avoids any of the unnecessary comments telling me I don't know what I'm talking about. A lot of Crystal's friends and family believe that if she had been treated for her mental disorders early on, like when she started showing symptoms at 8 or 9, that all of this could have been avoided. There's really no way to know that. I think the saddest part for me is that Michael Howell didn't want to see his daughter become another overly medicated kid. And I'll be the first one to say that I think kids are often medicated when they don't need to be. And obviously there's children that do need to be medicated for something or the other. But I think that parents and doctors are often too quick to turn to the medication route instead of kind of seeing if there's something else going on, or kind of just saying maybe they'll grow out of this. Michael didn't know how to distinguish between what was normal childhood development, like pushing back against authority and acting out, and what was an actual clinical mental illness. It's pretty clear to me that Crystal did need some sort of medical intervention, but I also, as a parent, understand how you can see your child through rose-tinted glasses. You don't want to see your child as a mentally disturbed individual. You don't want to imagine that the baby you rocked to sleep at night for years and years and years now is somebody you don't recognize, and somebody you don't know, and somebody who needs to take medication every day to be right again. Nobody really wants to accept that or see that about somebody they love, and they kind of think that they'll just snap out of it or get better. And we've kind of discussed this a little bit in other videos where mental illness has come into play, but it's hard for somebody who doesn't struggle with a mental illness to understand how it changes somebody and how all-encompassing it can be. The one person who fought so hard to treat Crystal like a normal person is the one that she ended up turning on in the end. I also do understand that Michael's own experiences in life probably did alter his judgment a little bit when dealing with his daughter. It did come up that he had gone to counseling or been in therapy when he was younger, and he was teased and tormented from it. And as parents, we want to protect our kids from the horrible things in the world. We don't want them to be bullied. We don't want them to be teased. We don't want to see them go through tough times. Even though I do understand that our life experiences can alter the way we treat our children and can cause us to maybe steer them away from certain things so that they don't have to go through the things we went through, I also think it's healthy to let kids kind of experience life on their own terms and do what they need to do. When my son was 6, he went on this kick where he wanted to wear nail polish all the time. And it's only because he saw me wearing nail polish and his older sister wearing nail polish, and he thought it was cool. It was like paint. It was fun for him. He's a kid. So he wanted to wear nail polish to school, and his father would always get stressed out and say, well, we have to take it off before he goes to school. And I would say, why? Why do we have to take it off before he goes to school? And my husband would say, because he's going to be teased and tormented and bullied. And I said, well, let's see how he handles something like that. And Aiden would come home from school sometimes, and I'd say, hey, what'd your friend say about your nail polish? And he'd say, well, so-and-so says it's only for girls, and so-and-so said it's stupid. And I said to him, well, what did you say? How did you respond? And he told me he basically told these kids, like, whatever, I don't care, I like it. I'm happy. And that's really what's most important. If we stop throwing all our hang-ups on our kids, I think the world's gonna be a much better place, because those kids who are bullying my kid for wearing nail polish, they've probably been told at home, like, boys don't wear nail polish, or that's stupid, or other, I'm sure, worse things by their parents. We're teaching and training our kids not only how to treat others, but how to treat themselves. And if they understand that the most important thing is being happy, they're not going to judge other people for doing something that makes them happy. And if they're being judged, they're going to stand up and say, I don't care. This is what I like. I think that Crystal would have been okay if she'd gone into counseling, even if she'd been teased for it. If she had enough self-esteem instilled in her by her parents, she would have just said, this is what I need. This is helping me, and I don't care what you guys say. But you do have to plant that seed kind of early in kids for them to have that sort of self-worth. And I don't think parents understand how important it is to do that sometimes. I think they think it's more important to protect than to teach. And I understand the values of both. In the end, most parents just want to save their kids from any trauma or issues that they've had in the past. And it's not out of malicious intent. It's not to purposely create a child that can't stand up for themselves or who doesn't know how to encounter hostility in the world. It's just literally to protect them. Sometimes these hang-ups do more harm than good. And in Michael Howell's case, I think that might be what happened here. He was so wrapped up in his own experiences. He was so wrapped up in still seeing his little girl as his little girl instead of a growing young woman who really needed some help, that he missed all the warning signs, and it cost him his life in the end. Crystal Howell took a plea deal and was convicted of first-degree murder, concealing a death, and failing not to report a death not from natural causes. She was sentenced to 60 to 84 months for the second charge and 25 years for the murder. She may be eligible for parole after that time. So I did find this case really interesting. I found it really sad too how a girl could just kill her own father, and not for any real motive either, just because she wanted to live her life the way she wanted to live her life and she didn't want anybody to tell her what to do anymore. To me, that's not actually a motive. Then you run away. If that's what you want, run away and start your own life. But then she'd have to get a job and make her own money, and she couldn't just steal money out of her dead father's bank account. So she didn't really want to be responsible. She didn't really want to do the things that a grown-up does, but she wanted to be taken seriously and treated like a grown-up and be allowed to do whatever she wanted to do. Like I said, there was a lot of serious issues here. In the end, she's going to serve a lot of time. I hope she gets the medical help that she needs while she's in prison. And as far as how I feel about her being allowed to be paroled at any time, she was a juvenile at the time that she killed her father. So I suppose she's being treated as a juvenile with the hope of rehabilitating her. I do know that people change, and I just don't know if somebody who makes a decision while in the shower to kill their own father will have the ability to change and ever be kind of rehabilitated from that. But that's not going to be my decision in the end, so that's just my opinion. Don't come for me. Okay, guys, we are done with today's video. Let me know if you enjoyed it. I am working real hard on Mystery Monday. We're doing John Benet Ramsey this Monday, and there's so much that goes into it and so much information that I'm just trying to dig through it to continue to bring you the most detailed account of the story that I can. Follow me on Instagram. Let me know what questions you want answered in the Q&A, and I will see you guys next time. Stay kind and stay beautiful. Mwah. Bye.
Listen as your day unfolds. Challenge what the future holds. Try and keep your head up.